morning, everybody. 8:20, August 18th, Saturday. Continuing on with the bonnet repairs today. I got most of this piece replaced or repaired last visit. Still got that big gaping hole there, obviously to fix. I'm going to start on that next after cleaning up those welds a little bit more. After that, I've already got this support piece fixed here. After that, I'll get this area cleaned up and preserved and kind of reverse process everything and get it all welded back in. And then I'm going to dissect the holes that I've got on the wheel arches, and as I go through that, make the decision in process on whether or not to remove said wheel arches. Really don't want to do that. They're not in that bad a shape, and I think I'll be able to come up with something to get some epoxy under there, but that's the goal for today. Oh, and I'm going to also see and figure out the extent of the damage that's right there. Well, that was a pain in the rear. You would think this little piece like this wouldn't be that painful, but it is got a slight curve to it, so I had to use the stretcher again. But it's ready to go, so I'll get this welded in and then start cleaning everything up. The other thing I got to contend with here is the bracket. So you can see one of my spot welds here. I went all the way through with it. So the problem with this is the bracket's 16 gauge and this stuff is the normal 20 gauge. And I run into problems with this with my welding going from a thick metal to a thin metal that I burn the heck out of the thin metal underneath and burn through it. So I think what I might do is reverse the plug welds, fill in the metal on this with weld metal, fill in the holes, I mean, and then weld the plugs from the back side of this plate. So using this as my weld to metal, I guess you could say. So I haven't come through all that yet, but I think that might be the way that I'll approach it to try to prevent burning through the thinner stuff on the underneath. Alright, well, this is one of those repairs that seems relatively straightforward, but you get into it and it's, 8 hours. So here's this strengthener piece that's ready to go. Got this piece cleaned up, welded up. You can see that little mark there, that's the placement mark for my bracket. What I think I'm going to do, just because this seems like a rust trap, is get behind this and hit the back with POR 15, which means that I'm probably not going to be welding this in today, but I want to get this bracket on first. So I'm going to do like I said and come from behind here, punch some holes in the support bracket here, and then weld into the bracket for the actual cone. That's where the little locator cone goes in, screws in there. You can see how it's supposed to look right there. So, and then so had some warpage issues and everything like that, so I kind of fit this piece in there and got it to line up finally. I got some holes in here that I've got to excuse me, that I've got to fill so I can tack weld to it. I'll just use the existing holes that I drilled out. And I still got to get this cleaned up in here, but that should be pretty easy. Just so I'm going to go ahead down that path, get this thing all painted up, and then move on to the wheel arches. All right, found some more rust. This is the bottom of the bonnet where that support piece goes in. That circular hole at the top is where the spot weld was. There's two at the bottom, obviously, is pitting. So glad I kind of cleaned this up. I bent that whole flange vertical to try and get it up and out of the way so I can get in the crannies in there. Looks pretty good. This is kind of beat up down here, a little pitted around that crack. So I want to fix that before I weld this thing back in. Some cracks right here around the door latch. You can see it better up here, I think. You can see those little cracks. This is what the pitting looks like from the opposite side. So I'll just get that cut out and get a new patch welded in. That shouldn't be too bad. And continue on. So I got the bracket sheet metal screwed in. I'm not going to weld it in until I conclude that I'm not going to remove this thing. I don't think that I'm going to need to do that, but I want to not go spot welding and then have to undo that because it's much more difficult to undo MIG plug welds. But I did get this little patch in there, just holding on with the magnets. I'm going to weld that in. You might be able to see there that it's not quite flush. I'll just do what I normally do and kind of bang it around as I get. I also got a little itty bitty crack in there. That's not cancer, that's a crack, I think, from the bend and everything, the metal getting hammered down and all that. So I'm just gonna clean that up and weld that. And I got the little bracket drying over there with the weld through primer on it in preparation for getting it on there. So I'm gonna get this little patch welded in here and then move on from there. Got that piece welded in. That crack along the edge, a little bit bigger than I thought. So there's still, I started welding and I kind of just chased it. So I'm just gonna leave it the way it is for now. And after I bend it over and get that other piece in, then I'll go back and fix up any holes that I've got in there. I had a viewer ask me to show them how I do the plug welds. So I'm not sure that that's a great idea. I'm definitely not an expert, but I'll try to show it here. I'm not sure how well it's going to show up on camera, but I've got this piece. This is the bonnet locating cone bracket thing. So I've got holes drilled through the thinner metal, ready to contact the thicker metal of the bracket itself. So I've got them cleaned out with the flattened drill bit, 2 on each side. Got it clamped down real good. I'll do some plug welds in there, get the clamps off, and finish the plug welds up. So let me get this on camera here and see how it goes. So some of the things that I've learned over the course of this adventure with welding, I've got the grounding strap. Get that as close as you can to the piece of metal. You also want to look at the cable and make sure that for the grounding clip itself, make sure it's not all curled up upon itself as much as practical, because what that does is creates a capacitance and inductance effect, and it doesn't allow current to flow. Right, this is your return path for the current of the stick, and it resists that current flow, so it will tend to not be as good of a ground. But otherwise, I'm going to zoom in here and get going on the plug weld, see how it looks. So my intention here is I'll get the welder into the get the thing into the bottom piece, let it go for a minute, not a minute, let it go for a second or two, and then kind of make that little rosette and spin my way around as I pull it out. Hopefully I get the right angle here and you can see this. Alright, so there's that one. I got some holes, some blow through, probably didn't get all the paint out of there, that causes that popping. Just go back and fill those in. Do the next one. That one was better. Alright, so there's those two. Again, they are not pretty, but boy, I sure do hope that they hold. Kind of be a bummer, huh? So I don't think I need to adjust that metal now. I was able to get this to fit up. Obviously it's clamped in. I still need to preserve behind it. So it's definitely under a little bit of tension here, but I think I can clean this up and get it straightened up and all that, and it'll work just fine. And I won't have to adjust the metal at all. So anyway, I'll pull that stuff back off of here. I'm going to get the behind stuff covered in PRR 15. I got to watch not to go too crazy with that stuff, because the epoxy primer doesn't get along with the POR, because the POR is so hard and hard to get adhesion on that the SPI guys don't recommend using it underneath the paint. So I'm only going to use as much as I need just to cover that, in that corner, and then the backs of these pieces that are never going to see the polyurethane, or excuse me, the epoxy primer anyway. Got some holes to fill that I need to take care of for plug welds that I'm going to do in the future, but otherwise we're going to move on. So I'm just ready to get the POR on. This crack right here, I'm going to tack it to try to get it back together, but I'm not going to totally fix it yet. It extends onto the top of the bonnet, and I don't want to flip it over, but it flexes pretty good to bring the crack together. You get some play out of this, so I'm just going to hit it with a couple spot welds, just kind of hold it in place, and then deal with a complete fix later. Nice and shiny. Got those painted. Got the inside there painted. You probably can't see it, but it's all dirty. I went to investigate the extent of the Bondo over here. You can see the outline of it there, where you see clear metal. So this is all Bondo, pretty thick. So it's probably beat up pretty good. Goes down into the couple dings in there. But anyway, that was shooting all the dirt, all the Bondo dust and everything, so that wasn't very smart. So I stopped doing that. But now what I'm going to do is move on to getting these wheel arches fixed. I'm going to start with the back one here. What I'm going to do, there's 4 spot welds here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to cut those or drill those out. And then I think I'm going to just cut this whole piece of the wheel arch out. And that should be all that's holding it in there. And that way I can get that in my hand and then repair that. And then cut out how much I need to cut out here. I also will be able to gain access to the inside of the bonnet itself, so I can see how bad it is pitting wise, determine how much I need to cut out. And then I'll try to do a similar thing over here, but it's not quite as easy to cut out. It doesn't look like it's going to be, so we'll see how that one goes, but I think that's the way I'm going to go right now. Well, that went a little bit better than I was afraid that it might. I did have to cut into the bonnet itself, if you can see that there, just because it's a really tight corner, kind of hard to get in. So you can see the back of that. So obviously some rust, but it's not horrible. It looks more like surface rust and dirt than anything. But then you look at this guy, and it's got that entire flange there down to about there or so, where I'll have to fix that. Another big pock mark there. But again, not as bad as I thought that it would be. So this is definitely the way to go, at least for my particular case, on how to repair this. And then looking at the rest of that flange and how it all looks, excuse me, I don't foresee me having to pull these wheel arches. So I'm going to get this over to the bench and then start cleaning this stuff up. So this is the inner wheel arch. Got all the cancer cut out of that and ready. Got the repair pieces made here and ready to weld in. Had one pretty good spot of like a pinhole, so I made a little circle, kind of like I did for the firewall a long time ago. And we'll get them welded in, but first I'm going to get back over to the portion of the bonnet itself that's rusted out and get that cut out and see how that looks. So I'm going to try something that I've not tried before. You can see that big tab of metal sticking out. I got it magnetized on there. So the fender flare starts here, and I don't know how to form it that well on the bench, because I don't think I'm going to really be able to work it that well. So I think what I'm going to do is weld it up here on the side and then work it in place to try to match the contour of the rest of the flare, and then cut off whatever's excess and put the piece that I cut out. I did end up cutting the entire square out. If you can see, that is gone. Just figured that might be a little bit easier. So we'll see. I'm going to get the other patch repaired and then go at this and see what I can figure out. I haven't cleaned anything up yet, but here's that patch, or patches I should say, obviously not cleaned up yet. On that one, that came out okay. And I was pleasantly surprised the way this came out. Again, I haven't cleaned it up yet, so some of the contours are probably going to be a little wonky. I can kind of see already, but it's done. It's in there, and it looks like it's going to be okay. Over here, I'm not going to have the same problem because it's flat, but the more difficult portion is going to be getting on the inside because this arch is a little less accessible. So we'll see. Alright, so that's the inside here. Got that cleaned up enough. Not going to worry about it too much. This is the repair piece. I don't think I showed this to you yet. That's all cleaned up. Again, not going to be concerned too much with the quality of the grinding. And then here's this guy. So I'm really happy with the way that came out, and my little try to form it as I go. There's all sorts of valleys and pits and stuff, so it's going to definitely need some Bondo work on it. I might try a little bit of hammer and dolly, but I don't think there's enough flexibility in the metal because of the welding and everything. But I'm real happy with the way that came out. And so I'm going to hit the backside now with the POR 15 again, and that's probably going to do it for me for the day. This stuff I got, it looks like sandpaper with all the gunk from it. But I'm going to clean up that Bondo spot in the front just to get that, since this stuff is now dry, even though it's like sandpaper, and look at the extent of that, and then I'll do a wrap up here in a little bit. All right, about 4:45, I'm wrapping it up for the day. Good amount of work today. Got all the repairs done to the bonnet stay bracket thing. Got all those pieces painted in POR 15 ready to go in. Got this back painted, and now like sandpaper from my grinding, that's ready to go. Got this area painted here for the replacement of the wheel arch, and I got this repair done here. Pretty happy the way that came out, though it's going to require some work. And I did figure out and got the this area cleaned up here, so you can see that's definitely not horrible, but it's been worked. So it'll be a little bit more difficult now for me to get those dents out, because I won't be able to, you know, figure out how they went in there. But so be it. So I got this hole to do, and this hole, which was never repaired by the previous owner, I got that hole to do, and I think that's about it outside of, you know, cleaning still, and the tears. I still got to take care of the tears. I haven't touched them except for this little guy down here. So that's it for me for today. So hope you have a good rest of your weekend, and hope you're enjoying what you got so far. Otherwise, thanks for liking, thanks for watching, and of course thanks for subscribing, knocking on the 900 door. So we're getting there. Have a good rest of your weekend. Take care. Cheers.